Hello, and welcome to Baki Talkie, Season 2, Episode 12, Completion. That's what we always call the penultimate episode of the season, the one where we complete things. But this is the completion of Muhammad Ali's storyline and, I guess, life's work. So, to bring us up to speed, we have a returning guest on the show. It's my brother, Jeff.
Hey, I'm back, everyone. Hello, Baki Talkie crew.
There you go. Yeah, I don't think we'd coined that last time we had you on.
No, it was coined in my episode, but not by me. It's by Ali at the end of my episode.
Oh
I
yeah.
couldn't use it.
Oh man, what a impressive recollection there. It's almost like somebody's listened to their own episode a few times.
I can't. I'm not going to answer that.
So you probably know what I'm going to ask here. For my returning guests, because we know what shows you watch and what you know about Baki. But I've been trying to cast our version of the Baki cinematic universe. If you could cast... So we've already done a lot of the main players in this episode. I guess really the one we haven't is Baki himself. So if you had to cast the titular Baki in Baki for a live-action Big Bucks remake, who would you cast?
Wow. First off, thank you for the privilege. And I'm just going to go with what immediately jumped into my head and I think would work really well, which is Robert Pattinson. I really think he could play the really kind of off-kilter, understated performance of Baki really well, and people would pay to see him ripped. So I think it's a win-win for all around.
You know what? I like that. And it would get him off of that stupid Batman stuff. We could just focus on what matters. Cool. All right. Well, jumping into this episode, this is the payoff to Muhammad Ali's storyline, which has been going on for the last, honestly, the entire season. So it starts off in the hotel.
Last season, even, really.
Yeah, they teased about this last season, so we know it's going to be good. This climactic.
Yeah, boy, oh boy, the payoff is worth it.
I can't believe when I asked you about this episode, you said you forgot that they fought, because it was such a good fight. But before that, Muhammad Ali goes from his hotel to the underground fighting arena, and I had to point out, he interacts with, I think, the three most fancy men I've ever seen in my life. Like, did you notice?
I definitely had recollections to my original episode begins with Dorian being greeted by a clown, and that kind of felt, I got very similar vibes here, as the fancy hat man greets him at the door, and then the fancy cab driver greets him, and then the fancy Dorian lookalike greets him at the underground fighting
Dorian
arena.
Lookalike with very indeterminate size. Like, sometimes he looks like Dorian's size, and then sometimes he's Muhammad Ali's size.
Yeah, sometimes the camera is right up on his face for no reason. Yeah, I thought they were very fancy. For sure.
I loved it. Like, the first guy, for description's sake, literally is wearing a top hat, and that's like the doorman to his hotel. And the second guy looked like the snootiest.
It doesn't look like a hotel, also. I thought he was walking out of an office building or a hospital.
I don't think they'd give you a top hat at the hospital, unfortunately.
Well, that's how I figured it out. Yeah.
It is true. Yeah, the building doesn't look as nice on the outside. But yeah, so Muhammad Ali is shuttled across the city. His driver makes some fun conversation with him. I forgot the other thing. They're all very fancy men, but they all are also, I would describe, as condescending towards Muhammad Ali Jr.
I really admire your courage. I mean, going up against the champion without using any banned techniques. I think that's quite brave of you.
I think it's really brave that you're going to fight Baki with,
Well, I just can't help but admire Muhammad Ali's courage. Which the guy says 5 times.
Let's just go.
It appears we have a huge crowd tonight. They're all here to witness your courage.
Everybody's really pumped that he's doing this. In the same way that you'd be pumped if your 4th grade child challenged LeBron James to one-on-one.
It'd be really brave, especially if this fight against LeBron James was to the death. Which...
I'd pay to go see it for sure.
Oh my gosh,
which a lot of people have.
I also like how I feel like this was a little bit of a continuity in his line, because this is the first time I think in the show that there seems to be this huge respect for Baki. Like, we didn't get that a lot in the Death Row Inmate saga. So the guy does say, I'm impressed that you're fighting the champ without any banned techniques, which I assume could mean, poison hands or guns or all that jazz, which would make it more less impressive.
Or I don't know, he might hold his breath for a while. Just out of nervousness. Does that count as banned? Who knows?
Imagine if Muhammad Ali walked up and put his hand over Baki's nose and did the it's only 6% oxygen.
Baki is kind of like a taskmaster. Like, once he's seen your trick, you can't beat him with it anymore.
From here on out, if something equally damaging were to happen again,
No way.
each cell will know how to overcome it.
So I don't think... I think that the fight would probably end close to how it actually ends. Yeah, everybody's very condescending. One bit of foreshadowing I wanted to call out while Muhammad Ali is walking through the hall with the Dorian lookalike.
Yeah.
He's very sweaty. He's like nervous, and he's got a lot of perspiration visible all over his body and face.
Yeah.
And that'll come up again. But I just wanted to call that out. That Muhammad Ali, very wet individual today.
I think he's a very hydrated person. He might just be like bursting at the seams with hydration. So he enters the arena, which we got some more description of how the arena actually works. This is what I understood. There's an arena, and then you take an elevator, and then underneath is the secret arena. Or am I just making that up?
So I have no idea. This arena definitely confused me a little bit, especially because we'll get to it at the end. There's a lot of arenas in this episode, and they're not necessarily the same ones, even though they're very similar purpose-wise. It looked like you went underground to an elevator that took you deeper underground. I think that's what you said, and I think that's what I saw.
Yeah. So as he walks in, he's getting ready. He's gonna fight the champ, Baki Hanma, and we see a red blur zoom onto the stage or the arena.
First off, he's got an hour to warm up and change. Where he just punches in the air for a while. But yes, he then walks into the arena. And I just want to say, continuing before we get to the red meteor, continuing the theme of people being condescending, the crowd looks like all of the other people. Like, they're not bloodthirsty, they're not excited, they're just kind of like, look at this guy. He's really coming, he's really gonna do it.
It did look like they literally were just bringing people in off the street, like just, a bunch of people, like a very just cross section of everyday life has come to watch this battle to the death. I want to restate. But yeah, so Yujiro jumps onto the stage.
He'll be here. The man who's stronger than anyone else. He's about to appear out of the darkness to defeat me. Yujiro Hanma.
What were your thoughts on Yujiro here? Because I had a thought on it, but I want to get your thoughts first.
Well, first off, I think everybody's thinking it's going to be Baki, and then it's not. And at that point, you're kind of like, well, this is going to be a quick episode. Yujiro's not even lying down on the floor just to taunt him, so this fight would presumably go a lot faster.
It was funny. Muhammad Ali kept saying things like, I've got to fight the champ, the strongest person. And it's like, oh, you mean Yujiro? And then Yujiro jumps in. Yeah.
I don't understand why Yujiro showed up to this. I think he was anticipating the conclusion. I think that's why he was there. I think he has two of his probably coolest moments of the entire series in this episode, and one of them is the Yujiro meteor, where he appears in just a red explosion in front of Muhammad Ali, and he's gigantic, even compared to Muhammad Ali, who's pretty big himself.
Big and small, yeah. But that his jump in, at first I was thinking this looks like a move that Knuckles the Hedgehog would do. Like, he is literally a ball of red energy. But then I realized, if somebody were to make a personification of Knuckles the Hedgehog, it would just be Yujiro.
Yeah, Yujiro is what is it? Knuckles, like, Mary Sue OC in his, like, story he made. And that's
yeah. It's Knuckles through the lens of Knuckles wanting to be a human. Is Yujiro Hanma.
So another fun thing to think about that moment is, like, what did it look like from the audience perspective? Did he just, like, come in the door and sprint down the aisle and then jump in off from the crowd, or was he hiding somewhere? We don't have any answers to these.
I really like the idea of him with, like, a trench coat and, like, a hat on, so nobody knows that he's in the audience.
He saw somebody hide in disguise once, so he was like, "Well, that's easy."
He's trying to flag a waiter down, and they keep ignoring him, and he's just like, "Oh, if only they knew I was really Yujiro."
Yeah, he wasn't planning on revealing himself, but he just was like, "I gotta get some service somehow. Let's show him I'm the ogre."
It's the ogre, the world's strongest man.
Oh, man. So he comes down, and basically serves as Baki's hype man, just saying how great Baki is, and that one day Baki will fight him. And
I'll say, so Stacy watched this episode with me the second time, so I could get some, like, extra opinions.
Oh, perfect.
And yeah, Yujiro does a really good job of leading up to hyping up the fight between him and Baki, even in this fight. So we'll see. You never know. This is called completion. Maybe we're going to get to see some completion here. We'll get to that later.
I have so much to say about the eventual Baki Yujiro fight, and, like, what even this episode is all about, because it's so confusing from the narrative perspective. But the non-confusing part is that Baki is going to fight Muhammad Ali Jr. And Baki eventually comes out and says, like, "Dad, get out of here. You're embarrassing me." And then Yujiro, I assume this is your other favorite part, is when he hits the drum.
Yeah, I mean, first off, just amazing sound design. Yujiro hits the drum so hard the drum explodes. So you get this amazing sound of, like, a thing hitting heavy cloth but not resonating because the drum no longer is a drum. But it's only the cloth that explodes, like the drum shape maintains. It sounded really cool.
Begin!
He also, in the English dub, I think he's like, "Move it."
Get lost!
Which was really funny. To, like, the guy whose only job is to bang the drum.
That poor guy, yeah. And, like, what's he gonna do now? His drum's done. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Oh, man. Yeah, so this fight, so Muhammad Ali has learned a lot over the last few episodes. He's learned how to fight with swords instead of wooden swords. He wants...
Oh, man. I didn't watch the episode before this, but I guess that's good foreshadowing, because it clearly plays a role in this.
Yeah. So he goes to punch, what's it called? Oh, sorry. Yeah, so he goes to punch Baki, and Baki immediately, before he even really does anything, knocks him on his ass with one punch. Editor Steve here. I wanted to add a clip to just sort of show that scene that we're talking about, but I didn't realize Muhammad Ali in this scene describes this fight like better than a radio play. Like, it's like Shakespeare. The stage directions are in the dialogue.
Go straight at him. Close the distance with courage. Here he comes. Into the firing range. I missed. He's so fast. He got me. That's it. The champion's so strong. Am I really going down?
Were you surprised at all, Jeff, the first time you watched this?
Well, honestly, no. Because it's such... you're not... After watching Baki, you're trained not to be surprised by this. Because honestly, you don't know whether Baki actually hit him or whether this was a dreamlike hallucination that Muhammad Ali has begun having, or if Baki is hypnotizing him into thinking that, or if this is his way of hyping himself up. You have no idea which of those it's going to be, because it's like a slow motion punch where he's narrating the punch.
But Muhammad Ali gets up and goes, "I've stored the kinetic energy from your punch in my chin."
You fool. Yeah. It's activated my poison glands. Yeah, so Muhammad Ali just gets decked. That's what happens.
Yeah.
And then Baki's just like, you wanna keep going, pal? I don't know its actual line.
No, I think that was more or less it. You gotta love Troy Baker as Baki.
Hey, bud. You want to keep going?
And
he put him one of the finest 20-minute performances if you add up all of his lines across the season.
in and out a day. So Muhammad Ali does get up. He tells Baki that Baki's an idiot because that was the only chance he'll ever have to beat him. And there's still like 20 minutes left in the episode, so everybody's hyped for whatever's gonna happen. And then what is it? Baki.
So I just want to cut in here.
Yep.
I really empathize with Muhammad Ali's banter that he spews off to try and convince Baki that he's still in control of the fight here. Where it's like, oh yeah, you thought you'd have to punch me, but like, it's kill or be killed. So as long as I'm not dead, we're going to keep going. And you can tell in Junior's mind, he's just thinking, I've watched all these Rai Tai tournament matches. I'm not in the driver's seat here. Like, he's trying to convince himself, but like, he's seen Baki fight Poison Hand guy. He's seen what happens to the people on the back foot. He knows he's on the back foot. Yeah.
He's realizing that he has become Kaio Joe. Literally, because they both get kicked in the balls into submission.
Yeah, so Baki, having shown that he's learned the dirty fighting tactics of the death row inmates, completing his arc of the season, just kicks Junior right in the balls.
And what a way to lose, on a kick. Like, after the whole season of talking about how, like, I don't need to kick, I kick the earth. And then a guy just kicks you in the balls.
Oh, man. I didn't realize that parallel, but that had to be intentional for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, and then Baki basically goes, well, time to die, and puts him into a sleeper hold, with the goal being, I'm going to kill you. I think Baki actually says later there was no doubt that he would have died.
He would have been dead. No doubt about it.
Yes. I think it's at this point, it's worthwhile mentioning that both Kozue and Tokugawa, the 11th generation businessman, are in the audience, and we get to see a lot of what they're thinking. Kozue generally is terrified. Tokugawa looks on the edge of something. He's like very excited about what's going on in the arena generally, especially when Yujiro showed up. But certainly at this point, Kozue is like, oh, my boyfriend is going to murder this guy. And she's not a fan.
But she stays as characteristically passive as she has the entire time. It's not her role to get in the middle of this.
But she did come to watch. That I don't know who invited her to this. Did Junior invite her?
She had to come watch. Like, it's way worse if somebody murders your boyfriend and you stay at home. She had to be there just in case.
Okay.
And maybe if Muhammad Ali Jr. killed Baki, she could run over and cry on him and bring him back to life. There's always the possibility.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So right before Baki can murder a man in cold blood.
Now, you're about to die.
I guess it's not cold
in broad
blood.
view of thousands of onlookers.
Thousands of onlookers who looked like they were having a great day. Somebody burst from the stands who, funnily enough, was like basically doing what we said it would be funny for Yujiro to do, and just wearing like sunglasses and a trench coat. The champ, the real champ, Muhammad Ali Sr., jumped in, punched Baki in the face, and saved his son's life. Great moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can't help but feel this was like, if you didn't see this coming, like, you haven't been watching the series. Like, the fact that we got Muhammad Ali out of his like retirement residence all the way to Japan, and you're like, he's not gonna punch Baki, it's gotta happen. It's just who he's gonna punch, and then he's not gonna complete the fight because they're not gonna have him lose, and he can't beat anybody that he fights.
Yeah, it was honestly, it's so funny like throughout the show, because I've always said like that the Itagaki, I think, really loves Muhammad Ali, and I feel like I mistakenly transferred a lot of that over to Muhammad Ali Jr. But I think at the end of the day, Muhammad Ali Jr., it may be a thought experiment of what if a young Muhammad Ali turned box into a martial art. But I think the point of that statement is that no, you can't replicate Muhammad Ali. And even my like fan fiction character who's trying to be Muhammad Ali is nowhere near the real deal. And I think that's like the takeaway is like you can't have another Muhammad Ali. His son sucks.
Yes. I think it's like it's a preemptive response to the state of Muhammad Ali, who like, you invented a character who's just like me but younger, and they're like, yeah, but he sucks, and you're actually still in the universe, and you're way better than this stupid OC.
And you get to beat up your son.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because he's in crutches. Oh man. But you know what? I did really like Baki's explanation for why Junior lost the fight, which I thought was fun. So Muhammad Ali was talking about how his fighting style is hit without getting hit, which is the whole float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, dodge people and punch them, and he extended that to kill without being killed. And Baki points out, you tried to kill me, but you weren't willing to die yourself. And because you don't have that commitment, that's why I beat you. Which I think basically boils down to, at its core, the art of dodging people's punches is not as good as the art of getting hit by people's punches and just being stronger than them.
Yeah, I think that's the indictment of Junior, right? He's Muhammad Ali's strategy of float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. But he's floating like a butterfly because he's as fragile as a butterfly, not because he's just like thinks it's economical to dodge punches. Like he's too high on his own supply. One interesting corollary of Baki's statement is that it explains his view of how the death row inmates became so powerful. Was like they tried to die on death row, which means they suddenly like gained a bunch of power levels.
They were more than prepared to die. They were disappointed to be alive.
Yeah, which is like I feel like that's like maybe the first stage of Baki enlightenment. And they were like, oh no, yeah, you think it's okay to just like intentionally try and die and be disappointed? Come over to Japan. We'll teach you a thing or two.
Editor Steve, we're not going to talk about this part of the episode, but I did want to throw in the clip. Is the reaction when Muhammad Ali joins the fight. It's it's probably the best name dropping of the season.
No way. Was that Ali?
Whoa, really?
Muhammad Ali?
Seriously? It is?
It's him! It's Muhammad Ali! He's really here!
Oh man. So yeah, that's Muhammad Ali. He lost. This is his last episode, by the way. He'll never be back. There's still one more scene of him, but
it's quite a scene. It's quite a scene.
Do we want to go to that and then come back to the whole like Yujiro stuff?
Yeah, let's jump to after the fight. We'll come back to the Yujiro stuff. But I also want to hit the locker room with Kozue. I assume we're starting there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So after the fight, which some big event occurs during the fight, just wait and see. But we cut back to Kozue talking to Baki, where she's like, "Oh, you basically knocked him out in one punch." And then Baki's like, "Don't say that. He was really powerful." And Kozue's like, I don't think so. Like, you almost killed him. And Baki's just like, he's just not having it. He's like, I'm the strongest. I'm super buff. And there's nothing you can say about it, Kozue. And Kozue just goes, you're really strong. I'm going home alone.
Yeah.
And then leaves.
And she goes straight to Muhammad Ali Jr., which is very confusing.
Yeah. First, I want to get out of the way. This show is famous for its disgusting depictions of the human body. And Muhammad Ali Jr. crying is off the wall. One of the weirdest things I've seen in my entire life. He's like overflowing with water just all over the place. Just so much tears.
Lots
and
of
mucus. Yeah, he's gonna need a lot of sugar water to get back in shape after this. He's really deprived.
He literally has a point where like Kozue says something and he shakes his head no so vigorously that tears and snot fly onto Kozue's face. Like it's disgusting.
It's disgusting. It's weirdly symbolic. Like Kozue ends up just like covered in liquid all over her face. Mm-hmm. It's a very odd scene. And I think, well, first off, there's a great part where it flashes back to where he's been so cocky over the season. And he goes like, marry me, Kozue. Stacy's just like, what?
Oh my god. And then it shows like all those pictures in the background of their
yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. And then it ends with Kozue just giving him a hug, I think.
Yeah, and this is the last we ever see of Kozue. So she doesn't say it out loud, but I do think she might just go off and live with Muhammad Ali Jr.
So
being like, he's less manly than Baki, but I mean, Baki also almost committed murder.
To be fair, I don't know if your big issue is committing murder, I don't know if I just go for the guy who would have committed murder, but he just got his ass kicked.
Yeah.
But so rewatching this, it was crazy to me that I'd forgotten this is the last we see of Kozue, because it does sort of like it ends with her talking with Baki, getting frustrated, and then embracing Muhammad Ali Jr. So I wanted to do some research, and can I tell you the what I found in the manga of the
Absolutely.
Okay. So I've talked before about how Kozue doesn't really show up after this, and I think I've found 2 instances that she does. I think that she shows up at some point before Baki has a big fight very briefly. But there's also a chapter which, from what I can tell, the people commenting on this chapter were legitimately saying that Itagaki wrote this to make the people asking, where's Kozue, to shut up. And it's way after this, but it's a flashback to this moment. And it continues the conversation. So what Kozue says is basically, Muhammad Ali, I did, love you as a mother loves their son. And there will never be anything romantic between us. And I think you misunderstood your feelings, Muhammad Ali, because you've just never been with a woman before. You've never even had motherly love with a woman. Which is it's a common thing to get misunderstood when, as a 25-year-old, you start trying to date a high schooler, and she actually loves you like a mother loves a child.
Yeah, and her. It's a common mistake to make. I didn't know that. That's it's rough for both of them, I guess.
I know it. Yeah, the chapter ends with her. I think just seeing Baki, so they're still together. So all the
fantastic, yeah,
all the shippers out there. It's funny because if there were any shippers, they would definitely not want Baki and Goswin together. The Retsu Doyle fans. Yeah, so going back, the big event of this episode is that why don't you explain it, Jeff? Baki has some stuff to say to Yujiro.
Yeah, so I have him written down as fight me, but I think maybe he says a little more than that. I have Baki says fight me, and then my notes, at last his arc begins.
It's keep going.
It's a wonderful little scene. Baki basically calls Yujiro out. I forget the order everything happens, but he calls Yujiro out. He's like, I want to fight you. We flash back to like Baki's childhood, and Baki is like standing up to Yujiro who's like bullying his mom before killing her off screen, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And he just decks Baki to the floor. He's like, "Oh, you're a weakling." And then the narrator comes in and introduces Baki to the audience.
Baki Hanma, son of Yujiro Hanma, who's often called the world's strongest man. Baki's mother was killed by that very same Yujiro Hanma.
It's like the coolest thing ever that our main character gets introduced to the audience in an episode called Completion, which is the final episode that features him of the entire series. Not counting like this is the Netflix series. This is the last one that has Baki. But he comes back in Baki Hanma, don't worry. But yeah, it's really interesting that they're like, this is Baki. He has a beef with his dad Yujiro because Yujiro killed his mom. And you're like, well, that makes things make a little more sense.
Yeah, that's the first time it's been mentioned in the entire Netflix show.
Yeah. So you're like, oh, this is why this show's called Baki. I guess it's been leading up to this fight. Completion between Baki and Yujiro. And Yujiro comes back with like, he accepts the challenge. In a very, very odd way. So I watched the Japanese subtitles before I watched the English dub. In the English dub, he's like, "You've handled your cravings. You've been able to like get through eating and fighting, blah blah blah."
Oh yeah.
But in the subtitles, he talks about eating stuff, and instead of having sex, he says feeding on women's bodies, which I just thought was a really fun line.
Oh my god.
So yeah, and then he says he's gonna eat him.
Treat him as prey.
The ogre's acknowledging him. He's actually recognizing Baki as his enemy.
And now that your style's perfected, you'll become my prey.
Prey?
He's gonna treat him. He's like, Baki, you're finally able to graduate to be a worthy prey. He also looks to Kozue and says like, "Hey Kozue, looks like you've been having sex with Baki real good. Keep up the good work." Kozue is mortified.
I don't think Yujiro makes a lot of friends, so maybe he's just trying to keep up on what's going on in her life.
Yeah, and then Baki, he comes back with some witty repartee like,
"Are you senile or something?"
Which Yujiro thinks is a joke. Yeah. I was on the fence whether it contained any humor value.
Yujiro's one of those
Yujiro,
guys, if he goes senile, I'm not going to be the one to tell him. Like, there's not gonna, any psychiatrist is not going to declare him senile, as he would, kill him.
Yeah. I also want to quickly call out, Yujiro has a moment here where he goes from his like casual face to a serious face, and his serious face is really funny. I don't know if you saw it, but it's like he's kidding about the whole thing. Like you get the sense that maybe he's not really into it, but
he's just
it's
doing
really
it
funny.
for a bit.
Yeah.
So that leads into probably my favorite part of the episode, which is everybody we've ever seen on the show, up to a certain bar of relevance, reacting to the news. I was going to say, I think like Suedo is the bar. Like, if you're more important than Suedo, we get to see your reaction.
There were people who I did not recognize at all, having watched every episode of the season. I was still like, there was a point where I was like, who are these guys? I think maybe these guys are these guys. And then there was more people, and I was like, I do not know who these people are.
Which ones did you not know? I knew everybody except one guy, because I don't think he was in the entire show.
Yeah, so that's fair. There were some that I suspected weren't in it. But there was the other Dorian clone who's like way smaller. I thought maybe he was the guy who fought Yanagi.
Yeah, that was Matobe. And the guy he was talking to had never been in the show.
Yeah.
Editor Steve, I just wanted to add a clip of Matobe talking to who I assume is his apprentice. But even in this scene, the apprentice apparently doesn't know Matobe's name. I don't know. It's very odd.
To be honest, I don't really feel I'm powerful enough to face the ogre myself.
You're right. Oh, wait. Should I have said that?
Of course not, you idiot!
But it's still true. You're powerless against the ogre, whoever you may be.
So that's what I thought. But then there was some guys with red hair.
So that's Kiraha and Kosho. So the doctor guy and the guy who tried to the guy who could rip your nerves out with his fingers.
So that's the nerves guy. I have no idea who he is.
He's the guy Doyle exploded. It was a while ago. That was like Jack's second episode, but yeah, Kosho Shinogi.
Okay.
I completely forgot about as well. When I first saw him, yeah. But yeah, we get to see Retsu, Katsumi, and Kato are all talking. It's fun seeing the pairings, like Jack Hanma's talking to Antonia Gari.
What did you say?
Baki Hanma issued a challenge, and his father Yujiro has accepted.
That Antonia Gari, that voice actor, phoned it in. He has
I don't know if they got the voice actor. It felt like maybe it was just Jack doing a voice.
It could have been Jack doing a voice, and like, I don't know. They all have varying degrees of making any sense. Like, I always forget his name, but Dopo Arachi and the other guy,
Goki,
Mr.
Shibukawa.
Yeah, Goki. So Arachi and Goki, they're talking at the beginning, and they're like, "Do you think you could beat Baki?" And they're like, "This is great snake whiskey." And you're like, oh, "All right."
Hey, Shibukawa, do you think that you could defeat Baki?
You know, this liquor is a bit strong, but it's quite tasty.
It was a gift. Habu snake liquor from a friend in Okinawa.
Sure, but they're kind of like the heavy hitters of the season. So I was like, okay, yeah, this is like when you do a curtain call and like two unrelated characters that had a lot of lines are just like out at the same time. But yeah, some of the pairings are bizarre. I guess Retsu is still training with the Shinshinkai army, so that's why he's there.
And Kato as, I guess, still Katsumi's new master. Like, I don't know what Kato was teaching him anyway, but
yeah. So they're there and they're talking. And then, yeah, Jack just benching stuff while another guy walks up to him. My favorite, and I'm sure all the fan favorites as well, Hanayama, whose scene I have no context for. I still don't understand. I've watched it a few times. It makes no sense, and it's different in the dubs.
Really? Okay. Because the dub was very confusing.
Yeah. So in the sub, it sounded like, so it's just Hanayama in a bar drinking, face fully healed, somehow. I guess maybe he also took a trip to China and fought in a different tournament. It was like healed his face.
He fought in the Greek version of the Raitai.
Yeah. So it's just him and a flunky, who's like part of his criminal organization.
Who's from episode 4.
Oh, awesome. I didn't even realize that. So yeah, Flunky from episode 4, he's talking about, he's just like, Baki's agreed to fight Yujiro Hanma. Should we, like, you know, take out Yujiro? And Hanayama's like, no, let him live. Or something along those lines. Like, in both contexts, it's as if somebody's like, should we go kill one of them? And Hanayama's like, nah.
Well,
don't do it.
It's like implying that Baki fighting Yujiro is somehow going to affect his Yakuza clan. Like nobody's going to respect Hanayama if Baki's the strongest high schooler.
So I thought it was more... I got the feeling Hanayama and Baki were pals, and this was like, as a favor to Baki, should we go kill his opponent? Which they're not going to succeed.
Yeah. Yujiro has canonically fought the United States military, which I dig them over Hanayama's Yakuza clan, but who knows?
Yeah. Well, I don't know anybody in the U.S. military who can split a phone book with just their fingers.
Gary Stridham will give it a shot. My favorite of these encounters, by the way, has got to be Jack Hanma, because coming off his amazing like steak eating performance, the voice actor does like an exasperated sigh, which is just like I actually find before this rewatch, I hated Jack Hanma's voice actor. I think he sounds like I don't know, just a really lame, like, buff, snidely Whiplash type of guy. But on the rewatch, he puts everything into it, and I really enjoy listening.
I feel like he does a great job of sounding like what you would get if you got Jack to voice himself. Like really rough, gravelly, strong, and just not interested in acting. Like...
It does sound like they didn't get an actor. They just got a really strong guy.
Yeah, I can see it being like maybe some WWE guy or like UFC fighter was like, they're making a Baki anime? Get me in that. I love Baki.
All right. Now, Jack, can you make some eating sounds? Oh, yeah, I got this.
He just like pulls out a hamburger. Why'd you bring that in here?
Oh, don't worry. I do this in every episode. Oh, my God. But yeah, so they all go and they go to a different abandoned stadium.
Okay, just quickly, Baki and Doppo also have their own.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, we got where Doppo's like, why haven't we ever? Oh, he asks Baki, we've known each other a long time, haven't we? And honestly, I think Baki's response is to go like, maybe. Have we? And I also don't think Doppo cares or knows. But Baki looks at his foot and he's like, if I say we haven't fought, are you gonna kick me in the face? Doppo's like, well, we're both trying to be the strongest you can be, right? And then Baki gives his little line about how I'm sure we've heard it on the podcast. It's like,
I've quoted it so many times.
Yeah. He just tells Doppo like, I'm not like any of you guys. I want to be strong to beat my dad, not because I want to be the strongest in the world. My dad just happens to be the strongest in the world.
And then we can see Doppo and Shibukawa just being like, this guy's ridiculous. Are you kidding me? What a coincidence.
Can you believe that kid?
Oh my.
He says it's coincidence his dad's the world's strongest man. And that's not his reason for doing this.
Well, then I have to say, that's bad luck on his part.
Yeah. That's what okay, so setting the stage for the final part of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
we get a countdown appear on the screen.
A countdown to nothing. Also,
It's
countdown
not
to
even a
8
countdown.
p.m. Japan.
It's a 24-hour clock. It just doesn't. It looks like a countdown because it just says like 1955.
Yeah.
And then we go to an arena. This is an above-ground arena, which I had no idea until I rewatched this episode.
I didn't know they
But
existed.
it's just it's an above-ground arena that all the fighters have access to, that nobody's in. And they just, of their own accord, have decided to come sit in the arena.
Nobody wants to sit together, by the way. They're all in the same groups from before, spread across an entire arena.
Exactly. And they're all just watching Baki stand there. As the time just keeps on ticking. And they continue their conversations. That's where Doppo and Goki are just kind of like, ho ho ho, yeah, he is different, I guess. When I remembered this episode and you told me about it, I really thought Doppo and Goki were talking about fighting each other, but they're not. They're just talking about how great Baki is and how he might fight his dad.
Yeah.
So yeah, then.
What?
Then. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say the first one to start commenting that something's happening, I think, is Kiraha, like the doctor guy who's done nothing in this whole series, and he says something like, "I think Baki's gonna manifest something in the next 4 to 5 minutes."
I think he's waiting for his vision to take shape. It better be soon.
With the willpower he possesses, I'd say maybe 4 or 5 more minutes.
Yes. Yeah. Jack joins in. He goes, "Oh, you gotta watch this," to his friend who doesn't seem to understand what's happening, as anybody in this scenario would, especially the viewers. But I mean, the thought is, this is a big arena, rented out clearly. There's nobody else there. It's surrounded by all the best fighters, and they're watching Baki in the center of the arena in an episode called Completion, where we were introduced to the idea of Baki having a grudge against his father. So what do we think is going to happen? The answer, of course, is Baki is going to think so hard about fighting his father that a ghost will appear.
That everyone can see.
That everyone can see. Once this ghost appears, we cut to a reaction shot from everybody in the arena, one by one.
What?
No way.
And they're all astounded that Ghost Yujiro has appeared. Then we cut to Tanzania.
Serengeti.
Yeah, Tanzania.
Meanwhile, in the United Republic of Tanzania, East Africa, in the Serengeti National Park,
where Yujiro is about to fight a literal lion. And then he looks over as if he can realize he's being ghost manifested. The narrator makes a specific point to call out, it's the same time, like 2 p.m. in Tanzania and 7 o'clock in Japan. And then that's the episode.
And the series. That's the end of Baki.
Yeah, that's the end of Baki.
next season.
The fight with Ghost Yujiro does not start, by the way, if anyone was thinking that. They just look at each other.
Yeah.
And that's that.
Oh, it's one of the wildest endings. Also, that lion he was gonna fight is fucking ripped. Like, I want to watch that.
I don't want to spoil
don't.
any of your future episodes, but like obviously, animals in the Baki verse, like we've seen Doppo and his tiger, and now we've seen Yujiro and a lion. They're clearly like there's something else.
Yeah. There's a reason they call him the strongest creature. But yeah, so basically I had 2 points on this. One, more of just a note that we're going to be talking a lot about this manifesting people into existence next season, because that's, Baki up until now hasn't really had much of a gimmick, I guess, other than being poisoned and having sex. And his next level up is a lot of fun. But I guess just structurally on the whole episode, I wanted to talk about how this whole episode implies that Baki is now ready to fight his dad. Now, we've both watched the entire next season. Do you think that this lines up with where the plot goes?
In a way, yes. But not in the way the viewer would expect. I think you kind of have to understand more about the Baki verse, right? Like, we saw Muhammad Ali Jr. just wail on a bunch of people in the Rai Tai tournament, like just effortlessly obliterate them as part of the Japan America Winners Coalition, right?
Yes.
And that was to show he's on another level. But this arc at the end was to show he's not on Baki's level. Baki is not on Yujiro's level. Yeah, he's taken that step up, maybe by almost murdering Junior. And like, now Yujiro's like, you're on my level. And Baki first has to figure out like what that means, I think, before he can actually fight him.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to see what that means next season. Baki's going to have a fun hurdle in his way. But yeah, man, I think we might set a record on this episode. There's so much to talk about. Jeff, you've now watched this episode, and you'd watched it previously, and you've watched the entire show. So I know that what you think about Baki. What did you think about this episode? What would you give it out of 10?
I would continue to give this episode about like a 2.5 out of 10. It's like one of the worst standalone episodes of all time, I would say. Like even for Baki, it's setting a very low standard. And you can enjoy it if you've watched the whole series, but like it has no connecting threads between the two stories except like vague allegorical high level themes, and like deliberately doesn't resolve plot threads. I guess it resolves Junior's plot, but like it also calls into question what it was.
Because it makes you wonder why did we spend 4 episodes on this?
It really does. It really does. I think it's just because they couldn't make the start of the next season last long enough to fill it out. So yeah, I would rate it low, but the experience of the season high is what I would say.
Yeah, it was a good season. I was thinking back about that, and I feel like the Death Row Inmate saga is honestly like a slow burn. It's just 10 dudes walking around Tokyo and bumping into each other and then fighting them. Like, this season was very purpose-driven.
Yes, I agree with that, though I also don't think the Death Row Inmates is a slow burn. I think it's kind of like a quick burn, and then there's no fire for like 10 episodes.
You're right. The fire burns out, and then we have to find Retsu in the mall when he walks into Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, man. All right. Well, thank you for coming back on the podcast, Jeff. It's been a blast. And that's all the Baki we've got to talkie. This is not the season finale. I know we said that a few times in the episode's called Completion, but there is a bonus episode next week where we find out what those death row inmates are up to. So make sure to tune into that, and then there'll be probably a 2-week break. But once again, that's all the Baki we've got to talkie. So see you all next week.
Bye-bye, Baki Talkie crew!
Friday.